Hey, kindergartners, happy Friday. It's Friday. So I'm going to give you a little video math lesson today. As you know, we have spent the last 2 weeks thinking and working with number stories. So last week, we did a number story called Tad's Bug Jar. And Tad's Bug Jar was an adding story or an addition story because Tad had 5 bugs and his sister added more bugs and he ended up with 8 bugs. Remember, he had 5, his sister added 3 more to his jar, and that made a total of 8. So that was an adding story, an addition story, or sometimes we call it a plus story. Then this week, we worked on that watermelon story. And at the beginning of that story, there were 10 slices of watermelon. And then we ate 5 slices of watermelon. So those were taken away. They went away. They were subtracted to leave 5 slices of watermelon. So that was a subtraction story, or sometimes we call it a takeaway story. We call that little line symbol, we call that a minus sign sometimes. So after 2 weeks of working our way slowly through some math number stories, I think you're up for a challenge to think of your own number story to tell us on Seesaw. And when you tell us your number story, I don't want you to tell us the answer. I just want you to tell the story. And then we will be able to go to each other's um, recorded number stories and try to solve them. So I have a few rules for your number story. You ready for the rules? Okay. Rule number 1 is your number story can be an adding number story, addition, or it can be a subtracting number story, subtraction. Okay, so we can be adding numbers, adding more, or we can be taking some away in your story. Okay, that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, your story has to have 3 sentences. You don't have to write the sentences, but you have to speak the sentences. Okay, your first sentence has to tell how many there are at the beginning of the story. It's your first sentence. Your second sentence has to tell how many are being added if you're doing an adding story, or how many are being taken away if you're doing a subtracting number story. Okay, that's your second sentence. Your third sentence has to ask the question. So it has to ask a question about how many are there now, or how many are left. Okay, 3 sentences. Next rule, I think this is the last rule. The next rule is that you're going to, like I said, you're going to speak your story. So you're going to record a video speaking your story. And in your video, you are either going to be using math tools, like I'm going to in a minute. I'm going to use some sunflower seeds for my math tools, or you can show us a drawing, a picture. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do an example for you. Here's my story. I've got my sunflower picture in the background, my sunflower shirt on. So I decided to do a sunflower story. Okay, so I'm going to tell the story first with a picture. So I've already drawn the picture. You can draw it ahead of time or you can draw it while you're talking, whatever's easiest for you. I thought it would be easier to draw it ahead of time. Okay, so here's my first sentence. I planted 8 sunflower seeds in my garden. So you can see 8 sunflower seeds in my picture. I bet you know what's going to happen next because my drawing gives you a clue. A bird came along and ate 3 of my seeds. Can you believe that? Pesky birds. So I crossed out 3 seeds. Now, here's my third sentence. This is where the question goes. Here's my question. How many seeds are still planted in my garden? And remember, I'm not going to tell you the answer. You can see it in the picture. You can figure it out in your head. I'm not going to tell you the answer. Okay. Now, I can also do this with math tools. Okay. So I'm going to do my best to show you. It's kind of hard with the video, but I'll angle it down and I'm going to show you with my math tools. So here's my first sentence. I planted 8 seeds, sunflower seeds, in my garden. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you can't see them. Let me try that again. There we go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I planted 8 sunflower seeds in my garden. A pesky bird came along and ate 3 of the seeds. 1, 2, 3. How many seeds are still planted in my garden? I'm not going to tell you. I know you know the answer, but we're not going to tell the answer in our number story because we want to give people a chance to figure that out themselves. Okay, so you're going to go to Seesaw. You need to think ahead of time. I planned out my story before I turned on the camera. I knew what my story was, and I had my math tools, and I even had my picture ready to go so that all I had to do was record myself telling the story. So when you go to Seesaw and you record your story, make sure that you are prepared. You can have math tools or a picture. I did both, but you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. And please remember those rules. An adding or subtracting story, 3 sentences in your story. And did I tell you? Oh, I don't know if I told you this rule. There's one more rule that I think I forgot to tell you. You cannot have more than 10 things. Okay, so if you're adding together, the total cannot be more than 10. It can be 10 or less than 10, but it can't be more than 10. And if you're subtracting or taking away, then your number at the beginning cannot be more than 10. Okay, we're going to stick with numbers only up to 10 for right now. All right, have so much fun making up your own number story. I cannot wait to hear your number stories and try to figure out the answers. That is all. Thank you.